Hello everybody to the fifth lesson of JavaScript for Active Design course. In this lesson, we will know how to write the codes in JavaScript and what are the statements, conditions that we should follow to write the JavaScript code. So let's start and say what JavaScript statements mean. JavaScript statements are composed of values, operators, expressions, and keywords and comments. You should know that firstly the computer programs is a list of instructions. Okay, so these instructions are listed and be executed from top to down by a computer compiler that we will learn it if we have time. In a program language, these programming instructions are called statements. So when you write any code in any language, you write it like instructions. Okay, for example, open book, for example, close book, for example, assign 5 to 6, assign 5 to variable 1, assign 6 to variable 3. And then when you assign and write these statements, you write them with the structure from top to down with this order. Then the compiler will come and read them, okay, and will know which one to execute it. For example, in our example, he will start from the beginning here. He will go here and say h2 browser in this case is the compiler. It works like the compiler, but it's not the compiler. So he will go here and say h2 id and will save the id in place. Then on click function means when the action is click, he will call a function and will print click. Then will be printed click in the browser. Then when the person click that, look like that, when we click that element, he will go, what is that? Okay, when we click that element, the action will activate it. For example, here when we click that element, okay, the let's see here what we have. When we click that element, console log, no, we need, for example, let's say document document dot get element by id. Then we will write the element id, which is header 2. Okay, then dot inner html. Then we write equal this text. Okay, let's delete this one, semicolon, and go. So when the user click that text, he will change the text. How does that work? He will go to this place. He have here an action. Okay, so the browser will read it. On click, call this function. So when the user click this, the compiler or the browser here in our case will go to this function, will search where is it. So he will go to the external, it's the function here. He will say the document, and he will go to the document, means the whole page. Then get element by id, he will search for element who has id at header 2. Then he will get it. Then he will move to the to its content, which is inner html, and write this content. So this how is the program works in any language. For example, in our case in JavaScript, which is scripting that could be in server. Also, JavaScript program is a list of program statements. So great, it's like the other languages. The statements contains of operations, values, expressions, keywords, comments. These things could combine to create a statement. So for example, in our case here, this is the statement, one of the statement that we have it for the JavaScript. So this is one of the statement, one of the instructions. So this instruction tells the browser to go to the document, then to the element which has the id2, the id header 2, and then change his inner html or style or anything, and then change it with that value. So he will assign that value to that place. So great. So this is one of the statements in JavaScript. There is another elements. For example, we will see them now here. We have something called the semicolon. If you have programmed with C++, the semicolon, which is this one, is so important. If there is no semicolon, there would be a program error, okay, when you debug that program. So in JavaScript 2, you should add semicolon for each or for every element. I mean, for every statement you have it in the JavaScript, except the functions and some other things. We will know them later. So here, for example, I will show you how to make a calculation. Okay, how to make a calculation in JavaScript. So to define a variable in JavaScript, you just write var, and you define the variable you want. For example, var1, var2, var3. Okay, you couldn't say var to show errors. Why? Because var is reserved word, and we will know the reserved word in this lesson or in the next. So you couldn't define any variable or any function name with the word or the reserved words, with the words of JavaScript elements. Okay, so it's hard. So for example, to say inner HTML, it will not be accepted. See, like that, inner HTML. No, it will show error. It's not accepted, I think. No, it's accepted because it's not like the var or function. It's not accepted. These are not accepted, but this one is not a reserved word. So this is how to define variables. Okay, so then I will say var1 has the value of, for example, equal 12. So now I have assigned 12 to variable 1. Variable 2, for example, I'll assign it equal, for example, 20. Great. Then semicolon. Then var3 equal var1 plus var2. Okay, so then he will print the value here. So here is how to create the calculation. So we have assigned the variables, and then we have calculated them, okay, and assigned the result to var3. In var3 I will assign it, let's see, plus, okay, and then I will see var3. Great. Let's see, var3 equal, and let's refresh the page and see what we have. Refresh. When you click, the text will be changed, and the variable var3 equal 32. Great. So how here in JavaScript, how to create some code. Okay, so if you need to join here, you should focus. If you need to join some text with other text, number with text, you should use plus sign. Okay, also we have here another thing. We could write all of them in the same in one line, because we have semicolon. Okay, so the semicolon means he will read like that, this he will read it until he arrives to the semicolon. Okay, this one is a statement, separated statement. Then he will read a new statement. He ignored the spaces, white spaces here, and the new lines. The compiler and the the browser ignore these things. He doesn't care about them. And then he will go here. He will read the new statement until he arrived to the semicolon. Means this is a separate statement, and this one is separate statements, and that one too. So he could read them without needing of order them like that. You could write them online, but it's now readable for human. Okay, so any browser, any programmer could read it easily and could know what's the what is the goal of that code and what's the content of that code. Okay, so there is something that you need to know, that the spaces, all these spaces, is not printed, okay, or not. It will be ignored. So the spaces, if you have programmed with another programming language, you will know these things, that any space rather than the space inside this place, it will be ignored by the compiler, browser, call it as you want. Great. Okay, so we have something called line, these new lines and the line break and so on. It's for best readability and maintenance. Programmers often like to avoid code lines longer than for example 90 characters. Okay, so when you write, for example, a long, for example, let's imagine that we have this. So here, if the code is so large, it will be unreadable. Okay, so for example, the programmer will come here and say read it, and he will think that the code is end here, for example, or he think that it's made by mistake or something like that. So it's not organized, well organized. But you could write a new line. Okay, so it's 80 to 90 to 100 character at every line. Okay, each line could contain 100 to 90 character. Okay, no more that. It would be I mean, not organized, not readable for the user, and not maintainable in the future. So also we have another point. Imagine that we have a lot of content here. Okay, and you need to go here new line. How we could go? We could go after the element that we have it here, for example, like after the equal. If you have equal, you have, for example, a big variable name, and you have the equal. So you could go after the equal. Okay, so and it could be after the operators, for example, after the plus, after the minus. So here it will not show error, but if I went I mean, if I created new line before the operator, it will show error. You will see that. I mean, it will show error, as I think. But it's recommended to give a new line after the operator. So now it will work great. It will know that when the compiler or the browser come and read that, translate it, he will read it and see plus means there is something after that. He will wait, he will read it until he get to the element that he is waiting for. Great. This is about the new lines and break spaces and lines. So you should put spaces and lines with your code, so that it could be, I mean, easy for the programmer that they will come after you, so they could know what to do with your code. Okay, so let's go to the next point. The next point talks about what? The next point talks about the blocks in JavaScript. So the blocks here we have, for example, in our example here, we have the function block. This one we call it block. Why? Because the functions, okay, have will execute all these code in one time. So when we click here, see if when we click this item, he will go to this code. Okay, and he will execute all these statements at once. He will go and calculate these numbers, and then he will print this number and assign that result with that characters. So it's called the blocks. Okay, what is the purpose of code blocks? The purpose is to define statements to be executed together. So in one place you will find statements grouped together in blocks. In JavaScript, for example, functions, we could see that. Also we have the next thing, which would be the JavaScript keywords. There's some keywords that we couldn't name any element in JavaScript with these keywords. For example, I will show you here some of these I mean keywords that you couldn't use them to name your variable. For example, if I say break, okay, sorry, let's name it here, break, okay, show it's show error here, for example, okay. Or if you name it function, it will show error here. Great. So these words are reserved words. You couldn't name any variable with that word because it's the JavaScript words, so you couldn't take them instead of the JavaScript. So we have, for example, break is not, it's not allowed to use it in your programming, your code, for example, variables, your function's name. It's not allowed, by the way. It means what? Terminate a switch or a loop. We will know them later. When you have a loop and you use break to break, or continue to jump. Debugger, do and while, which is type of loop, we will know it. For, also type of loop. Function, if, else, return, switch, try, catch, and variable. Try catch is great for catching the error. If you think that there would be an error, try and catch is great to catch the error. Variable and sorting. So these words are reserved words in JavaScript. You couldn't use them to define your own functions or your own variables. So I hope this lesson was easy, and we have an extra things about the codes in JavaScript, and we will know it later. Thanks for listening now and watching. See you in the next. Bye.